Welcome to Insight Builder channel, large language model automators, Python experts, and my dear friends. Deep dive into datasets for token classification in Argilla. So, what is the purpose of a token classification dataset? You guessed it, to train a token classification model. Let's move to the next step. What is the purpose of a token classification model then? In case of a token classification model, which can be a machine learning or a neural network model, takes a series of tokens. So you can see that this text data is separated into tokens by comma separated separations, and this gets sent into the model and it gets classified. So text becomes class 1, data becomes class 2, input becomes class 3, and input the token becomes class 4. So like this, the model actually takes this tokens and it sends and it converts the output into such classes. So how does the model do it? What is the steps that is required for training such a model? That's what we are going to see next. So what happens is there are lots of text that is available in the internet, which is taken, or not just in the internet, even in your own domain. You take the text data and you split it into tokens, and then you let the annotators to work, and that is where the token classification dataset sits. And you take this and the annotators convert that text data into such classes. So here you can see that I have made all the tokens here in each sentence same. So text data input, but in reality it will be having different tokens, which you will see in the example, in the code example, but you get the gist, right? So the tokens will be converted to different classes by the annotators. The annotators will say, for that matter, data will be class 2, in case of input will be class 3, and the text will be class 1, etc. So like this, the data that you look here, which is not annotated, converted into data like this, and this data is fed into the neural network model. And that's when the neural network model can look at these text as well as the classes, and it can learn. So that's how the token classification model works, and it gets trained. And in order to make this process easier, token classification datasets help in Argilla. With that brief introduction, let's dive into the code right now. So let's go to the code, and we are going to work on two types of token classification datasets, generation 1 as well as generation 2. In Argilla, this particular notebook will be shared with you guys. This notebook has got other datasets also in the same notebook. So you have to just scroll up and down, as you saw in this itself. Gen 1 token text classification dataset also is present in this only. So you have to start by connecting to the Argilla server, your own Argilla server that is hosted either locally or somewhere in Hugging Face Hub or in some other server. So you need to connect to that. You need to use these kinds of options. If you guys want to understand how to install, how to connect, etc., the earlier videos will explain to you. Take a look at that in the playlists. Here we are going to use the workspace called as HFGilla, and the details of this particular server is made private currently, so you will not be able to connect to this Hugging Face Hub space. You have to create your own. So it's a straightforward process. All you need is a Hugging Face Hub space, Hugging Face Hub account. After you have done the connectivity, you have to go scroll down in this notebook, and you will see that Gen 1 token classification dataset markdown can be found. So there we are going to start working on two things. First thing, we are going to understand how to make the setup or create the settings for token classification dataset. The token classification settings class will take the label schema, and as you saw in this particular example, you are going to give a text in form of tokens, and each token will be given a label. So here it's a color, right? So data is of color pink, here the input is of color brown, here the text is of color gray. All these things can be considered into classes. So all these things will be updated as label schema inside the token classification setting. Just by the label schema itself, you can set up the data set inside the Argilla server. So after you instantiate this token classification setting class, you can use the configure dataset setting function, and you can create the token classification dataset in the Argilla server. So I'm going to execute this cell, and this is going to connect to the Argilla server, and it is going to create the dataset for us. So you saw that once I executed the cell there, the token class dataset got created here. You can take a look at this setting, and you'll see that the labels that we gave in this particular notebook, noun, pronoun, verb, and parts of speech, got updated here. So how are we going to use it? That's the next thing. So in order for us to start annotation, we need to start giving the data or the text information, text data point to the dataset. For that, we are going to use token classification record. Token classification record takes text, tokens, annotation, and prediction. So these are the 4 arguments the token classification record class will take. So if you scroll up on this, you can see that what are the arguments it takes. So you can verify this. Here, minimum, you have to provide the text that you are planning to annotate, and the text has to be tokenized like this. So both of these things you have to provide in order for creating the record. And then after that, you can just log. You can use the log function in Argilla and log this particular record that you create here into the token class dataset that you created here in the workspace HFGilla. So once I execute this cell right now, what will happen is this particular data point that you have created will get pushed into the Argilla. So you can see one record logged to this particular server, and it is also telling the dataset location. So if I click this, it will actually go to that particular link, and it will open the dataset. So which anyway, I am going to do it here. It's a bit slow because the server, you can see that here the dataset are required for creating models is the data that we pushed it, and it is not yet validated. It doesn't have a validate option here, validate symbol here. So now you can actually click each of these words, and it acts as a token, and you can select one of this, and then you can actually validate it. So like this, you can do multiple selections, and you can update the details inside the Argilla server. And then once the annotation is completed, so you can see that datasets is annotated as a noun, for is annotated as POS, models is actually should be noun, right? So you can change it like this, and creating should be verb. So like this, you can create everything, and you can validate it like this. Now this is something that you are doing it manually, but what if you have to do it automatically? For that, we are going to do the next step. So what we can do is, first of all, in order to annotate a particular sentence, you need to make it as a list of tokens. And once you make it as a list of tokens, you have to be able to locate where a particular word is inside the sentence. So for that, we are going to use the find word indices function. In this particular function, this is written using ChatGPT. This is not written directly by me. I'm being very honest. Here, the sentence is the input that you are going to give, and the word is the word that we want to locate inside a sentence. Basically, what I mean is that if I'm going to give a word, let's connect with Argilla server for annotation work, will be the sentence. And if I ask for connect, where is connect located? So connect is located here, but what is the start and the end index of this word? That's what we want. In this case, the connect word starts at 5 index and ends at 12 index. So this is the output that you are looking for. Why we need this, I will show it in the next cell. So once you execute this, you will actually get this kind of a tuple comes out, and here is where we are going to create the prediction. So this prediction is usually given by models like Spacey or Transformers model, token classification model. You can use any of those models, and you can get this prediction. Here, what we did was we tried to do it manually. We created we tried to locate the indices of the word, and then whomever is running this particular example would have made 5 to 12 as verb, 8 to 25 as noun, and 37 to 47 as noun. So this has been manually coded. This is one of the way to actually create the record. Once this record is created, you can log this record also using log function, and this record will go into the Hugging Face, into the Argilla server. So there, once it is inside the server, you will see a little different kind of a UI, different kind of a setup for this new record. So there will be 2 records right now, and you can see that the selection, the annotation has been already done. So only thing is it's asking us to validate, right? If you click on validate, that means that whatever annotation or the prediction that has been provided was correct. If I change this, if I come here and change this to pronoun, and if I again validate, now this will get modified. So basically what will happen is the model predicted this output, but the annotator looked at the output and he decided, no, this is a wrong answer, I want to change it to POS. So he or she changed it, and then it got validated. This is one way. But what if we want to automate the annotation itself? That is also possible. So for that, you have to use the annotation argument. So here, after the prediction, the annotator or the developer itself can provide the annotation here, and this particular record you can push it to the Argilla server and you can log it. When you go back to the Argilla server right now, you will see once you refresh it, there will be 3 records. There is 3 records, and if you scroll down, this time the record has validate by default. I did not click on validate, it is there already, and this is because I gave the annotation values in the dataset itself. So that's how the token classification dataset works in Argilla in the Gen 1. Now let us actually go to the Gen 2 token classification dataset. So if you visit the feedback dataset, and if you expect there is going to be a template for token classification, you will be surprised that there is no such template. So you have to manually work on creating the fields, questions, guidelines, metadata, and vector settings for getting the token classification feedback dataset. But we can learn a lot of stuff. First and foremost, ensure that you upgrade to Argilla 1.26.1, or else you will not be able to use SpanQuestion. So this is one of the important questions that is going to change how you work with the token classification annotation process. So let's proceed. We have to start with the basic text field. So the text data that we are going to provide will be in this text field, and the question that we are going to provide will contain the name. So basically the name will be entities or the whatever names you want to provide. So these 2 are not that much important, but this is important. This is going to decide that what kind of labels that you can annotate for the tokens inside the dataset. Again, these labels are going to decide what kind of tokens you can annotate, and this is the field that it is going to target, that is the text field, and this is required. So we have to mention these things, and you have to create the question object, and then you have to put this question object inside a list, and then you have to give it to the questions. So if it is not a list, then feedback dataset will not accept, so convert that into a list. Again, the text field also has to be a list, so ensure that you are doing that. Finally, the guideline is required. You can give a basic guideline, and you have to provide the metadata properties as none here. That's how you start creating the feedback data set for token classification. So I'm going to execute this particular cell, and the outputs is collapsed right now, and you can see that the data set has been successfully created, but it has not been, and also it has been pushed to Argilla server. So let us go to the server, and if you look at it, ds_toke class has been created, but you will see nothing. So if you go back and if you look at the settings, you will see that it has got a couple of information. This is a token classification task, that is the guideline that I provided, and you will have the fields, that is a text field that I provided, that is a target, and we have the question. So the question is a little bit different here. So the question is called as entities. So these things right now you can understand, right? The entities is the name that we gave it to the question, which is coming here. The title is the title that is going to get end up here, and we have the labels here. So this is the labels that we are going to work upon. So you can actually reduce the visible label count, but here you cannot modify that. This is actually, you can change that here. You can see that the number of visible labels actually becomes, visible label becomes 3, but the number of labels will be 4 only. Only the backend visible labels will become less. So let us not change any of these things. And now let us actually create a record, and then we will see how this changes and how you can interact with the record. Let's go here, and in order for us to push the record or add the record, we have to again get the reference back of this ds token class from the Argilla server. So for that I have to use this method, and I have to use this workspace also. So after that I will be getting the access to it, and then the feedback record is pretty straightforward. I need to create a feedback record class with the fields equal to a dictionary that contains the text, and this is a very important sentence. So that's what my record is going to be. I'm going to execute that. I am not going to give anything else. Rest of the things can be left alone. And then you are going to run this add record method. So once that add record method is done, you will see that the record is added. There is no any error. So let's go back, and let us enter into the annotation area. So you'll see right now that it doesn't look much different, right? But it's saying it's pending, and it is having a different kind of UI, and it has these 4 labels that we started. Now comes the interesting part. So once you move to the text area, you will see that we can select that particular word itself, and you can annotate it like that. Now that's something that it's very interesting to work with. Now I can actually make it as a verb here, and you can take any of the spans, and you can make it as a noun. Here the color is a little bit confusing, but you get the idea, right? After you do this, you have to submit it. So this is how the things have remarkably improved from the generation 1 to generation 2. This SpanQuestions is under active development. There are a couple of issues that I have seen in the GitHub repo also, but till what I've seen here. So one of the surprises that I faced is that I was not actually finding the template for token classification template. So it took some time for me to reorient. So if it is not there, it's all right. We know how to resolve it. You have to go to the GitHub, and you'll be able to find out that yeah, if you go here, there are lots of discussion that is happening, and you can check the issues in the GitHub repo, and you can search for SpanQuestions, and you'll be able to get it. A lot of great work is being done by the Argilla team, and kudos to them. Let's go back to the visualization. So we have right now dove into the token classification process. We have seen the purpose and the model, how it has to be trained, and we also saw how you can annotate the token classification dataset using the token classification classes in dataset classes in Argilla. We saw 2 classes. One is the generation 1 token classification dataset and record, and the generation 2, that is feedback dataset, along with the feedback record with the questions. So I believe that you have learned a lot about how to work with the datasets and how easily you can annotate it. If you are going to annotate now, you can actually take any of the datasets that you want, and you can start working with that. They have made it so easy. Like if you have an essay that you want to annotate it, split it into multiple parts, annotate it, and then put it into a dataset and start training, it's very simple, and you can do it. Moreover, Argilla server is you can take the Argilla server, run it locally, or you can put it in Hugging Face Hub and start doing the annotation there and pull the dataset. I'll be covering those pipelines. There is a lot of pipelines already explained in Argilla documentation also, but feel free to look into the next series of videos where I update the further templates on feedback dataset, as well as text-to-text annotation dataset. So that will be the next video. So till the next video, stay tuned and have a great time, guys. Practice, 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 practice. See you guys.